Welcome to Spiritual Awakening family. Strange paranormal occurrences have been a recurring motif for as long as man has philosophized, from the countless religious accounts of higher and lower dimensional beings, extrasensory perceptions, and the like, to modern studies in parapsychology, and the research community considered as ufology. Humankind has always abundantly speculated about the abilities and experiences beyond the basic comprehensions. Furthermore, they have done so with good reason. While there is always a great deal of information fluff to these stories, the legends that are created from first-hand accounts, modern research into paranormal motifs like the Mothman, the non-human men in black entities, and indeed even monuments like the Great Pyramid bring about questions that seem to beg answers in the realm of the inexplicable. Is it really as simple as an ancient aliens theory? Are there really extraterrestrials visiting us from other planets throughout the cosmos, abducting human beings and mutilating cattle, genetically tampering with human DNA, and making secret deals with Earth governments? Are these Earth governments, like the US, really sitting on massive caches of classified documents revealing evidence of the ET, that are just waiting to have their lids blown wide open? Or is this undeniable thread in human experience a much more nuanced, misunderstood, and possibly metaphysical experience? To some, this comparison between metaphysics and ufology might seem a bit fantastical and outlandish, but interestingly enough, this was the ideal maintained by Jack Parsons of Jet Propulsion Labs, which later publicly dovetailed into NASA as it is known today. While producing groundbreaking scientific material at JPL, Parsons was a practitioner of the esoteric order of Thelema, and was close friends with not only L. Ron Hubbard, but Aleister Crowley as well, detailed in the book, Sex and Rockets, The Occult World of Jack Parsons by John Carter. To the surprise of many people, it is actually a significantly documented matter of record that the UFO phenomenon has always had the roots of its promulgation within the government intelligence agencies, and the wealthy elitists that fund these agencies by proxy. Case in point, the Rockefeller Initiative of the early 1990s, during the Clinton administration. The Rockefeller Initiative served as a little publicized but highly influential pull by Lawrence S. Rockefeller to pressure the Clinton administration into disclosing the alleged classified information about the UFO phenomenon. The subsequent declassifications made by the Clinton administration were influential in the development of the modern ufology community, and if this were not suspicious enough, the so-called father of the UFO disclosure movement, Dr. Stephen Greer, has consistently gone on record advocating his relationship to Lawrence Rockefeller and the Rockefeller Initiative. Greer fully acknowledges a corporate industrial takeover of modern society, predominated by a wealthy group of elitists, like the Rockefellers, that can be demonstrated by following the money trail, but Greer claims that Lawrence is one of the good guys. Among Greer, there are dozens more prominent UFO researchers that were directly spurred by the Rockefeller Initiative and served as foundations in the field, such as Dr. John Gibbons, Dr. Ron Pandolfi, Webster Hubbell, a variety of senators and representatives, and so forth. And then there are the other advocates of UFO disclosure like former Canadian Prime Minister of Defense, Paul Hellyer, and his outspoken statements about ET communication with humans. This is treated by the ufology community as if Canada has held some reputation as a paragon of truth. On the contrary, it has always played a clear and distinct role as an asset in U.S. foreign policy, which sets a poor precedent, to say the least. The list could, unfortunately, even go on from here, with all the former Navy and other intelligence officials whistleblowing their knowledge about ETs that they learned while serving high ranks in the military. Meanwhile, while the UFO phenomenon is promulgated endlessly by Hollywood and mainstream news sources like the History Channel and Onward, The US has seen a converse and unprecedented spike in its crackdown on government whistleblowers. Granted, a large portion of these UFO whistleblowers were coming out with information while this crackdown was still being cooked up, but if the UFO phenomenon was such a grand and well-kept secret, wouldn't there be a much heavier enforcement on all these so-called UFO whistleblowers, even the ones from the past? This is, of course, not to suggest that the US government has never harassed civilian eyewitnesses to UFO ETs, but that the US government often does not seem to go after these officials on the matter, and they tend to only question the civilians. This cannot be taken as a black and white, blanket statement, and again, this is not to suggest that the UFO ET motif is entirely fictitious, but that it has been directly cultivated to serve as a research community of half-truths and limited understandings. So when researchers like David Wilcock are making claims like humans got fiber optic technology from the Roswell crash, how literally can these statements be taken? As great as these ideas sound, they should be heavily speculated. For those unfamiliar with the concept of US military intelligence making direct and long-term efforts to mislead the ufology community, the story of Richard Doty and Paul Bennewitz from the 1980s is recommended for research. A heavily documented case that has been covered in compelling documentaries like Mirage Men. Richard Doty, a military intelligence operative, was essentially tasked with promoting fantastical and untrue ideas theories about ET communication with governments. To Mr. Paul Bennewitz, Doty received this strange line of work from his government officials because Bennewitz, a highly skilled satellite communications technician and technical handyman, began snooping through the private radio broadcasts of Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico. Long story short, Bennewitz subsequently stumbled onto talk and eventually sightings of some highly classified government aerial technology, and since Bennewitz was an avid UFO conspiracy theorist, he began theorizing as such right away. Unfortunately for Bennewitz, his downfall was contacting the Air Force Base in order to be a good American about his UFO findings. This is where Richard Doty came in. While the jury is certainly not out yet, it seems that the most likely explanation for modern UFO sightings can very heavily be attributed to the sighting of highly advanced and suppressed government technology, and this likely includes lots of drones. Perhaps you thought that the History Channel was giving you the key to ancient esoteric philosophy. As far as the entire ancient aliens theory goes, the jury is not out on this one, either. But, articulated by researchers like Graham Hancock, a person does not need a grand conclusion of extraterrestrials traveling interstellar distances to Earth in order to explain the pyramids, and a person certainly does not need the laughable mainstream Egyptology explanations either. Hancock and other researchers in his field of alternative history propose the general idea, highlighted with different reasons by different researchers but with a cohesive body of evidence, for a formerly highly technologically sophisticated human society that far predated Egypt, which gave rise to Plato's and others' ancient tales of Atlantis, called other names in other accounts. While this does seem like the biggest conspiracy of all time with a lot more work to be done on the matter, it legitimately stands as a much taller theory than the ancient alien ideas or even the mainstream ideas of a primitive slave labor production of the pyramids with pulley systems, as research today shows the convoluted nature of mainstream Egyptology. See Rashwala de Lubitsch. As a final assessment, the comparison between the UFO phenomenon and religious experience is brought to consideration once more. From rituals like praying, all the way to the pentagram or the Kabbalistic tree of life, Metaphysics has always been predominantly interested in understanding higher dimensions and the entities that are said to inhabit these places. Shamanic experiences during meditations that lead to encounters with angels and demons seem to be oftentimes very reminiscent of some modern-day ET encounters, and even more comparative are the links between psychedelic compounds and spiritual experiences, and the modern-day equivalence between psychedelics and ETs that is peddled by many people today. There certainly does seem to be a true phenomenology to some UFO and ET accounts, and researchers like John Keel are some of the best testaments to this. However, the research into the UFO community, in contrast to esoteric occult philosophy of natural law, bears many overt fallacies and misconceptions, seeing as how esoteric philosophy has been around for thousands of years, and ufology largely seems to be a product of government intelligence. The choice doesn't seem very difficult. However, the overall difference between mainstream religion and occult principles of natural law should be specified as different concepts. People seeking deeper understanding of the world through either religion or ufology might be better suited looking to these esoteric principles instead. This is, of course, not without its pitfalls either, as the theories of archontic alien mind control are rampant on the internet, and serve as a possible interpretation of the Gnostic Nag Hammadi scrolls. While this is a tale for another time, it should be stated that there ultimately appears to be varying, nuanced shades of truth and lies in any given statement. The real trouble is sorting through it all. I hope you like the video. Welcome to your channel. Don't forget to check out the other uploads.